California Real Estate Investor Podcast. Today, I have Jayla with me again, and she is going to hit me with some questions. We're going to walk through a specific deal, get into the details of the deal of a 48 unit that I purchased with seller financing. I did not use a bank. I did not have my credit checked. I did not fill out a bank application. A seller financed me on the purchase of a 48 unit building. Now, this 48 unit was in Texas. We are a California Real Estate Investor Podcast, but I'd be interested to know how many of our listeners invest out of state. I'm going to guess it's at least 50% of California real estate investors that I talk to also invest out of state or have invested out of state. Hi, it's Alan here from the California Real Estate Investor Podcast. I want to share with you two cool free resources. First of all, our Facebook group, California Real Estate Investor. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can connect with us there, share stories, share about what you're doing, where you are in California, and we look forward to that. And then secondly, the website, the California Real Estate Investor.com. I've just uploaded a free mini course about flipping luxury homes. You can download there. If you're flipping homes and you want to make more profit per deal by going higher end with your flips, that's a great resource for you. So check that out. I look forward to connecting with you on the other side. What's happening, Jayla? What do you think?
Hi, good to be here. Yeah, I live in California and also invest out of state. So I think this is super relevant. California is a crazy state. So I think while there's plenty of opportunities here, it's smart to look outside of California also for anyone here. So love this.
Absolutely. So the podcast will focus on California real estate investors, but we're going to always go with the flow. And we're going to talk about this out-of-state deal that I did, which was seller financed. And seller financing is becoming huge right now because of interest rates and where they're at. And many people don't even realize that you can buy a property without using a bank, without having your credit checked, without going through all those hoops that the bank throws you through. I didn't even do an appraisal. It was the seller financing it. So there was no appraisal. It's actually a lot of fun. It's amazing how much less red tape and paperwork you have to go through to purchase a deal, seller financing. So I'd like to start from the beginning and walk you through, and Jayla, pop in questions or comments or feedback as I go, but I'd like to just walk through the details of this deal real quick. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. Can't wait.
All right. Well, I'll start with how I found the deal. So we were targeting a specific area in Texas. It's called Victoria, Texas. It's a mid-sized town. I knew someone that was living there and they really spoke highly of it. And I was looking for multifamily. I actually looked in Austin and I felt like the cash flow was a little tight. The prices were pushed up high. And so I went down into this area called Victoria, 2 hours from Austin. And what I did is I pulled title. Now, I used a title company to do this. There's all kinds of software tools. We'll link to some down below you can use, but you can pull owners of properties. And I specified that I wanted between 30 and I think I said 80 units. I was trying to get in a certain price range. And I wanted people that owned these buildings for more than, let's say, 3 years, at least three to 5 years, ideally. Because if someone just bought the building, didn't think they'd turn around and then just sell it to me, seller financing. So I was looking for people that owned the building, preferably as long as possible. And then when I got that list, it was only about, I'd say 150 buildings and building owners. Some of them own multiple buildings. And I took the list and I had someone who was working with me at the time help me, and we hand wrote out envelopes to every one of those owners because we wanted them to open the envelope. And I didn't want to just send a postcard. I know that way they're guaranteed to see it. I wanted this to feel a little personal, almost like I was sending them a personal offer from a real person. Jayla, do you do this where you get like a stack of mail? Let's say you haven't been to your mailbox for a few days and you get this stack. And do you separate the mail out from what looks like it might be interesting and what looks like junk?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I think everybody does that. I know I do that. I'm kind of separating out like, ooh, this one looks exciting. It looks like it might be a check. And then it's like, and then I have, oh, this is a bill. This is important, but I'm not going to open it right now. And then I have like maybe even a third pile where I'm like, this is junk. Like this is stuff it's going right in the recycling bin. I kind of have like 3 piles. Anything that looks personal or is a check or something that could be exciting goes in that first pile. So my goal was to get in that first pile by handwriting an envelope, stamping it, not doing bulk, and then, getting them to open and look. And so at that point, we would print out a letter and I would sign it. Sorry, did you have a comment on that?
No. Go ahead. I wanted to back up even because I'm actually curious
Yep.
even how you got to that point. Well, so in terms of, because you said you got a title company and you went to them. So do you have to have any like experience to do that? Or how did you find the title company? Can you go to any title company? Like I have not
Yeah.
done, what you're explaining. So I'm genuinely
Yes.
curious. Like, how did you even get to that part of the
Yes.
process?
Yeah. So I am a licensed real estate agent. So anyone who's a licensed real estate agent listening would understand that you can have access to title records. You can also get access to title records. There's various software and tools. I don't want to go into them right now because I'll go off track from the deal, but I can link to one down below. But there's a lot of tools where you can basically pull owners, right,
And
of
anybody, you
properties.
don't you don't have to be a licensed realtor.
Anybody. Usually
Okay, cool.
you have to pay something for these tools.
Yeah,
They're not expensive and you can pull lists. It's a list pulling
got it.
tool and you can
Okay,
specify different criteria of what you're looking for. So that's
cool.
what we did. We hand wrote the envelopes. In the letter, I was very specific and I listed things that would be a benefit to the seller, right? Because I wanted them to immediately see, oh, okay, this is what I'm getting out of this, instead of seeing my letter and saying, oh, this is another one of those letters. And so I started the letter out. I just said, hey, I'm writing you about this property that you own at so and so address. I was curious if you'd be interested in selling the property, getting a great price, and on top of it, making interest on your sale. So I kind of just I didn't want to say seller financing. I didn't want to use any terms that might overwhelm them or confuse them. I just made it short and sweet that we'd like to make them an offer. They could get a great price and they might even be able to get interest on top of the price, just to pique curiosity. My main goal with that letter is to get them to call me. So I
Mhm.
would say, I am a real person. I'm an investor in the area. This is my name. This is my cell phone number. Please call me direct, right? And so I got an incredible response rate. I got 10 calls out of just about under 150. I mean, I almost got a 10% response rate on that letter,
Wow,
which
that's
is
amazing.
that's huge. Now, of the 10 people that responded, there was one that I was like, this might actually work out. And it did, right? But there was one person that called and he had 48 units and he told me his price. His price was at the time 1.8 million, which at the time, this was over 10 years ago, at the time that price was about market value. Like it was okay. It wasn't amazing. It was okay. And so I thought, you know what? I can't get a loan right now for 1.8 million. I didn't say that to him, but I was thinking, hey, how about I give you that price that you're asking and you finance me and you get your price plus interest and I will pay you $78,000 a year. You'll have no responsibility over the property. You'll be able to just collect that check. Literally, we will um, electronically pay that amount to you every month. Does something like that sound interesting or at least worth exploring? And this guy was approaching retirement age and it sounded interesting to him. And so he didn't say yes, but he said we could discuss that, right? Because he wanted to know more details and get more information. But I explained it in a way where he was seeing the benefit for him. The other benefit that I communicated is that he would not have to pay capital gains on the sale. He could delay it. I said, of course, speak to your CPA, but you can delay the gain because what I'll be paying you is just interest. You're not getting any of your equity back on the property until someday I sell the property or refinance you out. And he asked me, he said, well, how long would you want to go on this term? And I asked for 10 years. And I said, that gives you plenty of income for the next 10 years. And it also gives you the delay on paying any taxes. And he liked that. It was a win-win. And so
So,
we
so real quick
came together.
to recap that. So he owned the property outright. Is that right?
Yeah.
He owned it
Well, actually,
outright.
no, let's talk about that. So he had a little bit of debt on the property.
Okay.
And I asked him, I said, do you have debt on the property? And he said, it's about 200,000. So I knew that I needed to come with capital, whether that was my own or I needed to have a money partner to come up with at least 200,000 to pay off his debt. There's other ways to do it, which we're not going to get into. I could do a wrap mortgage where we would keep his debt in place, or I could assume it and keep it in place and pay it, do a subject to, right? And just pay on the debt that he had in place. I could have done that, but I could tell he was feeling uncomfortable with that. So, and I knew that I would be able to raise that capital. So I basically gave him a down payment of 270,000 is what I came up with to pay off his mortgage, give him 70 in his pocket that he did have to pay a tax on. And then from there, pay him interest of 78,000 a year. Now, I'm going to break down how I got to that payment, but any questions up to that point?
No, keep going.
For those that are watching on YouTube, I'm going to show some visuals of these numbers, but if you're listening, it's not super complicated math, but basically I was buying the property for 1.8 million. And I figured out that I really wanted to land on an interest rate of about 5%. And what I think we should quote seller financing when we're the buyer in dollars instead of in interest rates, because it sounds much bigger. I mean, I don't know what you think, but if someone tells me, hey, I'm going to give you 5% versus someone telling me, hey, I'm going to give you $78,000 a year, the $78,000 a year sounds like more money, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because it sounds more substantial than even saying, you're going to get, so much per month. Like that chunk sounds substantial.
Exactly.
So totally makes sense.
Yeah. So let's look at this. So if I am saying 78,000, that breaks down to 6,500 a month, right? And 6,500 a month when you got 48 apartments might not sound like a lot, but 78,000 a year for doing nothing. And I explained that to him. You're going to be the bank. You're going to have no maintenance responsibility, no property tax, no insurance, nothing. Literally, you can go to Jamaica and this money will show up in your bank account. And you can say that. You can make it very, very clear. It was a win for me because now I'm getting a loan at 5%, which is a good rate at the time. It's a win for him for all of those reasons. So when you look at this at 6,500 a month on my payment, this was 48 units. Now, the property needed a lot of work and it was like 25% vacant. He was pretty upfront with me. He's like, hey, I've been doing some work and the property needs some renovations and I've fallen behind. But on those 48 units, and his rents were really low, like $525 a month. But even at $525 a month, if you take 48 times 525, you have $25,200 a month. Now, that's at 100% occupancy, which we weren't at. So if we take, let's say 75% of that, then we're at 18,900 a month. Now, that's not bad, right? 18,900 a month when my mortgage payment is 6,500 a month. Now, of course, I've got all kinds of other expenses in there. I've got property taxes I need to pay. I got an on-site property manager I'm paying. I've got maintenance. I've got all kinds of bills that I'm paying, but there's a lot of cushion there.
Yeah, sounds like there's definitely enough margin there to.
Yeah, even if my expenses were another $8,000 a month, I'm still cash flowing thousands of dollars a month. And what I did is I took that cash flow and I dumped it back into the property because I was running at 25% occupancy. So my goal was to get that occupancy up to 95% and then get the cash flow going. Let's walk through just a few more details on the seller financing to make sure people understand some of the practical steps of what happened. So as we came to this agreement on the price and the terms, we had a local closing company draw up the documents and I submitted a draft. I just honestly pulled a note and mortgage draft online and we modified it for our purposes. And then they used a closing attorney in Texas. You can use different states are attorney or escrow, but regardless, you can use someone to help shape that document. But basically the document was recorded as a deed and then the deed was connected to a mortgage. So there's actually two documents and the title company helps with all of that. But the mortgage is the document that spells out the terms that we agreed on. And the deed shows that he has a claim on the property, that when I go to sell that property someday, that mortgage that it's connected to will have to be paid off, right? And it was in first position. And I explained that to them as well. What that means is if the property sells or if I refinance, they are the first person on title to get paid before anyone else gets paid. And so that's a very, very strong position. Usually the largest lender, which obviously he was the largest lender, is in first position on title. And so we recorded it. And I explained that to them as well as a benefit. I say, look, this is going to be recorded on the title of the property. So you have security in the property, you have a secured interest backed by real estate that you already know. And on top of that, the best part is you're going to watch me dump money back into this property that you are secured by. So I'm going to be renovating it. I'm going to be improving it. And I can even send him pictures or information on other deals I've done just to help him feel comfortable. And I did some of that. I sent him like a resume. I sent him some photos of work we've done. And I didn't have to fill out a loan application for him. He didn't check my credit, none of that, because we just built trust. And I went out to look at the property in person, all of it. And as we progressed, we were able to just close this deal. And then I was able to renovate as I go. And then I eventually improved it actually over a decade. I'm very much a buy and hold investor in a lot of ways, but over a decade, we improved it, we increased the rents, and we sold it for over 2.4 million. And move that money into a larger apartment building. And so that is the kind of walkthrough of how we did that deal. What questions do you have for me out of that?
Well, and so I'm guessing, like, for him, you're also saying if you default, it goes back to him. So if he's getting his existing mortgage paid off, correct?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then if you were to default, he gets to keep the whole thing, right? So
yeah,
eliminates that risk, I guess. If you could explain one more time, like how the title works. So you pay off that existing mortgage, and it's just you have that attorney who takes the deed and then modifies whatever is needed on there, and then that's held by the title company until you pay them off. Is that correct? Or they just kind of make all that happen?
Yeah, they record it on title. So it is public record that anyone can see that this property has, I can pull records on any property and see if there's any deed or, basically connected to a mortgage. Yeah, so it was recorded. He was secure. If I stopped paying, he could start moving forward on foreclosure proceedings on me to get the property back. So he would have gotten all the money that I'd paid him up to that point, and then on top of that, gotten the property back. Now, foreclosure proceedings would have cost him some attorney fees and taken some time, but again, it would have got everything that I paid him up to that point, plus the property back. And so it did not seem like a bad deal for him either.
Yeah, he's protected. Yeah, that is great.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's amazing. Yeah, it seems like such a win-win. And that 200,000, I mean, that's probably way less than you would have had to put down with a traditional bank loan, most likely, right?
Yes,
especially
exactly.
Commercial, right?
I'm so glad you pointed that out because that I would have never gotten a loan like this from the bank. The bank would have required at least 25% down. And I was in at around 15% down. I was able to put down a much lower down payment than a bank would have ever accepted. And you can do these transactions if the seller will agree, you could take over the mortgage. Like I could have tried negotiating and saying, hey, how about I make the payment on that mortgage for you and we can set it up with a third-party servicing company so it's happening and they'll get your reports to show you that it's happening. And then on top of that, I will pay you the rest of the mortgage payment over that payment. And then I'm going to take the money that I have and I'm going to dump it into the property. This additional 25% vacancy that you got, I'm going to dump my money into the property and you're going to be in this deal really secure. So now if you noticed, I didn't mention anything about down payment. So I could negotiate in that way to say, we're not going to be doing a down payment. I'm going to take what money I have and I'm going to be dumping it into the property. That might make sense to the seller. They might say, you know what, if you're going to take this to the finish line and you're going to put your money in, maybe you put some sort of like reporting back to them scheduled together. Look, every month you're going to get photos from me. And for the next 6 months, as I'm improving the property, I'm going to get you photos and a report. You can tie that into the agreement, but you can make it a win-win even without a down payment. It really depends on the situation.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah. I've never done a seller finance deal. I would love to do one. And it honestly does sound totally doable, which is super cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It is a little bit of a numbers game. It's finding the right person on the
Yeah.
other end where it's a win for them, right? So it's not going to be a win for maybe, for me, it was 90% of the people. If I got 10 people that called, it wasn't a win for them or the deal wasn't a win for me. But one out of the 10 that called me out of those 150 letters, it was a win for both of us. And so there is a numbers game there, but it totally works.
And so, do you think in today's environment right now, given where interest rates are and stuff, do you think it's a little easier to find those I mean, I know everything it is a numbers game and takes work, but are there more opportunities like that, do you think, more so now than
Definitely.
a decade ago?
Definitely. This market is so ripe for seller financing. So ripe because you have sellers that are sitting on properties that aren't selling. They're not getting offers. They're maybe pricing them a bit too aggressive. Like my guy was priced, at 1.8. And I'm like, the price is okay. It's not super attractive, but it is about market value. But you have people priced maybe a little high. They're not getting any offers because the buyers are looking at it through traditional bank financing and they're like, my payment's too high. So you can approach that seller and work out a deal with seller financing. It'll be a win for them and a win for you. Absolutely. It's super hot right now. It's not that popular because a lot of people don't know how to do it. But if you can figure that out, it's a win-win.
That's awesome. I love what you said about the handwritten letter because I think that totally makes sense. I would definitely open that one. So that's super cool too. I love that.
Yeah.
If you have a copy of it to share, I'm sure everyone would love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do
That's
that.
awesome.
Let's figure out how to get a copy available.
Very
Well,
cool.
that's it. That's the walkthrough. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you on the next deal. Hey, thanks for listening to the California Real Estate Investor Podcast. We'd love a review on whatever podcast platform you listen to this on. Also, visit us at thecaliforniarealestateinvestor.com or our Facebook group, The California Real Estate Investor. We look forward to connecting with you and encouraging you on your real estate investing journey.